Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz, Love Talk on Babz Rawls-Ivy. I'm delighted this morning to have Bruce Cohen on. Hey, Bruce Cohen, unmute yourself. Let's get into this conversation.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be on with you.
How are you?
Full disclosure, I was very honored with my husband to get to be guest at the state dinner at the White House last night. So I am in Washington, D.C. and all good.
Oh, and you're up this early? I still would be asleep.
This is late for me.
Oh, okay. You're an early riser, one of these people. I get up at 4 o'clock.
Oh, no, not 4 o'clock.
Not 4 o'clock. So let me just tell people about your Yale alum. You are one of the producers of Rustin. You are known for Milk, which Academy Award nominated Milk, Silver Linings Playbook, which I love, and American Beauty. And so now you're producing Rustin, which is the story of Bayard Rustin, who was the architect of the March on Washington that almost was lost to obscurity. And here we are.
Yes, that is correct. Bayard Rustin made history. He changed history, and history repaid him by forgetting him.
So what was it about this story, Bruce, that said, you know what, I really want to do this?
I had known about Bayard. There was a beautiful documentary in the 90s called Brother Outsider. And I remember seeing it then and thinking, why does no one know the story of the man who created the March on Washington? And then Dustin Lance Black and Julian Brees, who had written the screenplay, sent me the script. I'd worked with Dustin on Milk. And so I was super excited to get a script about Bayard. And then when I read it, I just loved it. And I knew that if I could play any part in changing the narrative around the fact that no one knows who he is and that he's been lost to history, but that this could be a chance to reverse that, I was all in.
Okay, so you say, all right, I'm all in. And then you assemble a team because, listen, this cast is ridiculously heavy hitting. I'm impressed by the caliber of talent in this one film.
Well, the two things that really solidified the team and help us put together that amazing cast is that first we went to George C. Wolfe, the brilliant stage and film director. He had directed the original production of Angels in America. He had just directed the film of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom 2 years ago. And so he was really our first choice to direct Rustin. And then fortuitously, while we were trying to get this movie made and we were learning again and again that no one knows who Bayard Rustin is, I remembered thinking, well, I know one person who knows who Bayard Rustin is. And the person I was thinking of was who had presented Bayard Rustin with the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously 10 years ago on the 50th anniversary of the March. And that was President Barack Obama. And as sometimes the universe works out in these magical ways, President and Mrs. Obama had just opened their production company, Higher Ground, at Netflix the month before. So we had the idea of, let's send this script to the Obamas and see if they wanted to come on board. And that was a real game changer for getting it made once they said yes and once Netflix said yes.
Oh, wait. And then the icing on the cake is the music.
Oh, Lord, yes.
I'm thinking, all right, Branford Marsalis is pretty big. But then you get Lenny Kravitz to sing the song. And I'm thinking to myself, this movie is just way over the top, gorgeous, and beautifully presented.
Well, Branford and George have this incredible collaboration. This is the third movie they've done together, and they really work back and forth, which is incredible. And I'd never seen it before between a director and a composer. Sometimes George would put together a sequence and send it to Branford, and Branford would write music to it. And sometimes Branford would just write music and send it to George, and then George would edit a sequence to Branford's music. So it was really amazing to watch them work. I am obsessed with Branford's score. I think it is so beautiful and incredible and really propels the movie along from start to finish. And then when it came to an end title song at the end, it was a really high bar because, spoiler alert, the film has just ended with the March on Washington. And what George C. Wolfe really wanted a song that starts at the feeling you already have at the end of the film and takes you to some new place. So we were thinking, who's an artist that might have the power and passion to do that? I've known Lenny for decades. We've actually been really good friends for many, many, many years, and are really family. I'm a godfather to his daughter, Zoe. And so we went to Lenny, and fortunately he said yes. And spectacularly, he wrote Road to Freedom, which just sends you out of the theaters soaring.
Oh, it did. I mean, I had the pleasure of Netflix sent me the opportunity to screen it last night, and I watched, and I was going. It was just the right ending, just the right ending. What I was really struck by is this cast. This is a really interesting cast. Heavy hitters. You got Glenn Turman, you got Chris Rock, for God's sake, CCH
Audra McDonald,
and I think Mr. Wright, who is probably one of the best actors of our time in this thing, and I'm thinking, and then Coleman Domingo, who is physically gorgeous looking, right? Like, he's physically gorgeous looking, but he made me believe he was Bayard Rustin. Like, he made me believe it.
Well, the cast is due to 3 words, or maybe 9 words: George C. Wolfe, George C. Wolfe, George C. Wolfe. He is known for his beautiful work with actors. Every actor in the business dreams of getting the chance to work with George. And he has an ensemble of actors who he loves to work with, who sort of follow him everywhere. And those include Coleman Domingo, Glenn Turman, Audra McDonald, and Jeffrey Wright. So those 4 were really the linchpin. Those are kind of his go-to actors. They're coincidentally 4 literally of the best actors working today, if not in history. And so fortunately for us, all 4 of them wanted to be a part of this project. And that's where we started. And as you can imagine, once you have those 4 in your movie, it becomes a lot easier to cast the Chris Rocks and CCH Pounders and Adrienne Warrens.
Now, is that the beauty of having a George Wolfe as a director? Like, who says no to him, right? Like, he could pretty much pick who he likes, and people just like know and trust that this is a worthwhile project.
That is, and that's really part of the job of the producer, is if you don't, you've got to have the right director, and hopefully the perfect director for the project, or you're going to be pushing that rock uphill from the get-go. So in the case of Bayard Rustin, just one of the many reasons why we knew that George was the perfect director is that he was going to be able, and he did, assemble this all-star cast to tell this all-star story, to make sure that when this movie hits theaters on November 3rd and then is on Netflix on November 17th, our dream is that Bayard Rustin is not going to be lost to history anymore. And from now on, people are going to know who he is and know what he did.
I love the way that, because I think, and I'm not a homosexual, but I am a Black woman, and I understand sometimes tropes and that you can portray people not as who they are, but what what people think they are. And I think this film does a really good job of centering his homosexuality, but not in the usual way that we tend to think homosexuals are. Like, he was a real human being he was witty, and he was funny, and he was charming, and he was, and he was thoughtful.
Well, I love that you said all of that. And, intersectionality, which is this beautiful, powerful term that I love, that's around now, which is this idea of, if we don't all have rights, none of us have rights. And the minute we're in one underrepresented community, if we're not embracing and believing in and empathetic towards members of another underrepresented community, then we're part of the problem. We become the oppressors. And that's an idea happily that's gaining more power now and in the nick of time, because what's happening now is all of our rights are at risk. Black people are losing their rights, gay people are losing their rights, women are losing their rights in ways that we didn't even think was possible 5 years ago. We thought, oh, the battle's won, we have all these rights, and now they're being yanked away from us. So if we're not all in this struggle together, we don't have a shot. And Bayard Rustin understood that 60 years ago. He was putting these coalitions together, this coalition that he brought together for the march: rich, poor, Black, white, working class, young, old. That's the coalition that we're going to need to put together again if we're going to survive.
I think you're absolutely right, Bruce. And I'll tell you what else I loved about the film. I felt like I was seeing behind the scenes of that moment of time, because everybody likes to romanticize the March on Washington, but there was a lot of backfighting and a lot of backstabbing in those moments. And it wasn't just everybody was like, we're all going to go along with Dr. King. There were people in his midst who was not in line with that whole, let's do this, let's peacefully do this, why are we doing this? So I am fascinated by the ability to sort of look behind the curtain on all of that.
Well, your calling that out just made President Obama very happy, because that was one of his big, beautiful, powerful notes to us, is when he read an initial draft of the screenplay, which he loved. He said, people today, they think marches are marches. They've seen the Women's March, and with Black Lives Matter, thank God we were all out in the streets marching. But at this time, there had never been a march before. Bayard invented this idea of hundreds of thousands of people marching. And so President Obama really wanted to make sure we showed the behind the scenes of how that came together, how the different groups fought and ultimately joined sides, how the sandwiches were made, how the latrines were ordered, because he felt like you really want an audience watching it today to understand that this was invented by Bayard for the March on Washington in 1963.
And I think he had nerves of steel. Like, you have to have a lot of guts and a lot of nerves of steel, because he was catching it from a lot of places, from the security detail, not really wanting to be a security detail, from people within the NAACP who were feeling some kind of way about this, and from Martin Luther King, who was, I believe, his mentor and dear friend, who was, a little uneasy about this too.
Absolutely. George C. Wolfe likes to say, which I love, people ask various versions of the question, like, how could Bayard Rustin have been out in 1963, which is a great question, because literally no one was. I mean, being out was not really even a thing. And here's this Black gay man living proudly as a Black gay man. And what George always says is, Bayard literally did not have time to feel shame around being gay. He's like, I have a march to plan. I cannot even spend a minute on worrying about that. And I just love that so much.
And I know, like, his love interest was, from what I read, was a composite of folks, because you don't want to out people, you don't want to unintentionally out people. But I think it was handled with such care. Like, it was very loving, like it was done beautifully. It didn't seem like harsh or just over the top. It just seemed just the right amount of care with his love interest.
Thank you. And yes, you're right. Our research showed that there were probably several closeted gay ministers who were active in the civil rights movement. None of them ever came out. In many cases, even today, their families don't even know. So we clearly knew there was no way we were going to be outing anyone, which is why we created the composite character. But we've already, in screenings, people will come up to us who were there then and will say things like, I know who that character is. So we feel like we definitely got that right.
Has the Rustin family seen the film? Do they know of the film? Did they bless the film?
There isn't much of Rustin family left because, as you learn in the movie, his mom flew the coop and he was raised by his grandparents. And of course, they're long gone. Who is around and who has blessed the film and who is part of the great journey we're on with screenings around the country is Walter Nagel, who was his partner. They met 10 years after the march, and then they were together for the last 10 years of Bayard's life. And also Rochelle Horowitz. And a lot of the women, Joyce Ladner, Dory Ladner, the character in the film, that she went on to become Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. And she's been doing Q&As and involved. So we have a good group of the people that were actually around then and actually who knew and loved Bayard, who have loved the film. And we also had to show the King estate and the King family because we use a bit of the I Have a Dream speech. And so they had to bless the film, which they did, which had huge meaning to us. The fact that they stand behind this movie and are proud of it is just huge.
Yeah, because they're not easily ready to put the King name on stuff. Like they don't just willy-nilly say, we stand with this, we do that. They're very discerning about when they stamp something, and so that's got to be a huge blessing to have them say, okay, we like this.
We were we did a screening in Atlanta just a few nights ago, and Andrew Young was there, who had been at the civil rights movement, who was mayor of Atlanta, who was an ambassador. And he at the end was saying, of all the films I've ever seen about the civil rights movement, this is the one who got it right. You got it absolutely right. And so, that's why you do things like this, is to get comments and moments like that. Andrew Young had met Bayard in 1951. He was a student at a seminary in Connecticut, studying to be a minister, and MLK was there too at the same time, which is in the new biography of MLK, and it mentioned Andrew Young. They were both in seminaries in Connecticut studying to be ministers in the early 50s, and Bayard had come to Andrew's seminary and spoken to the kids there.
And Dr. King was here picking cotton, tobacco in Connecticut.
Yeah, near New Haven.
Yeah.
To make money for school. I know.
Yeah.
So, good Lord.
I love that there's still some civil rights leaders still among us that can see this film and have a remembrance about that moment and can speak to that moment. Well, have you heard from Andrew Young and Eleanor Holmes Norton? Who else is around to sort of
think? Well, yeah, I mean, it was 60 years ago exactly. So there are certainly still a lot of people who are alive and around. I mean, we've heard, which is beautiful, from a lot of just regular people whenever we screen the film, older people will come up with this beautiful look in their eyes. And I think, oh, what are they going to tell me? And then they'll start saying, I was at the march, and they'll tell their story. My father was at the march, and he was very moved by the film. And so that's been really powerful to get to give those people back, another journey through their really strong memories of that day, and then what it ended up meaning and how it changed the whole world.
I tell you, the film is very bright looking. Like, it doesn't look dreary and tired. It looks it's colorful, it's bright. People look beautiful in it. You captured that moment. Was that deliberate? Because you could have taken a different tone with how it looks.
That was very deliberate. Bayard Rustin was a wildly joyful, entertaining, charismatic, hilarious person, and we felt the movie needed to be all of those things. There were various moments in production where both George and Coleman Domingo felt the presence of Bayard with us, and we started getting this very strong sense that if this movie isn't entertaining enough for Bayard, he is going to roll over in his grave and kick all of our asses. And we did not want that to happen.
On a more serious note, Bruce, are you concerned about the folks who will object to this film, who will attach critical race theory to it, the very anti-gay folks, and they'll feel like this is teaching something or that's not. And I mean, do you concern yourself with the pushback on this film?
I mean, that's been a theme in some of the work I've done, because certainly it happened with Milk, and certainly we will get it on this. And the headline answer is no. If we're upsetting the forces of darkness who want to take all of our rights away, then we've done something right. But then in a more nuanced discussion, the film isn't really for them. The film is for two groups of people. The film is to preach to the choir, to remind all of us who already believe in truth and justice for all. Coleman has that amazing line in the film: they either believe in truth and justice for all, or they do not. And that's really the overall theme of the movie. Is if you're thinking like, well, these people deserve their rights, but these people don't, to the moment today, if Israelis deserve their rights, but Palestinians don't, or the other way around, then no, you're missing the point, which is we either all have our rights or none of us have our rights. So for everyone who believes in that, this is hopefully, inspiring and entertaining, and a call to action, and to get everyone to realize, well, look what he did. What can I do? As CCH Pounder says at the end of the film, did you make yourself useful today? And, we hope that that's challenging our activist audience. How am I going to make myself useful tomorrow? But then in some ways, the most exciting audience is that smaller, movable audience in the middle, who may not think they want to see a story about a Black gay person. They may not think they have anything to learn from it. But if we can get them to see it, if they tune in the theater or in Netflix, the film might actually change their minds, just along the way that you were talking about the portrayal of all the issues. And if we can reach just a few people, every person you reach who are like, oh, I never realized that me wanting my rights but not wanting some other group to have theirs was an issue, then we've really made some magic.
Now, we all know that Black women in the march have been sort of relegated to the behind, back, and underneath. But you censored some. You got Ella Baker in there, and you got CCH Pounder's character in there. That looked like it felt very strategic. Like you didn't want to leave a woman's voice out of it, even though they were kind of left out of it.
Correct. It was we knew a little bit, but the more Julian and Lance, and then when George came on board, we all did our research and higher ground, because of course, when you're working with the Obamas, they have a very high standard of historical accuracy on everything. And the more we learned about how horrific women were treated and left out of the march, the more upset we were. It goes exactly to what I was just talking about. Here's this march who's espousing equal rights and claiming to fight for the rights of Black people everywhere, and they're leaving women out. I mean, WTF, as we say. But, that was what happened in 1963. So we were like, okay, well, there's no way we don't want to touch on that story. If we were just telling the story of the march, there wouldn't be that many women involved, which was part of the whole problem. So we really did want to tell that story. The amazing Ella Baker, played by the extraordinary Audra McDonald, who people also don't know enough about, and she needs a movie of her own. She's actually one of the women who was not at the march. She refused to go because of how women had been treated. So, the fact that you would throw the march on Washington and that Ella Baker doesn't show up and protest just shows you, what a catastrophe that side of things was.
Wow. So I'm hoping that this film is a very teachable moment for history. Like that's what I'm hoping that this film does. And I think a wide audience could see this, like teenagers and college students could see this film. Is that your hope? Like, who do you want to see this film?
No, that absolutely is. We really hope that it will have mainstream appeal, that a whole wide group of people see the film, because it's exactly what I was talking about before. The core audience and the activists and the Black queer community and Black activists and people who are like, oh yeah, I want to learn more about Bayard Rustin, of course, the movie in many ways is for them, and we want and love for them to see the film. But the fun of it and the excitement and the potential for it to be a teachable moment is that people who actually need the teachable moment will watch the film. And it's one of the things, I'm a big believer in science for the universe, and it's one of the things that I really love about how it ended up being that this movie is for Netflix, because what's going to happen on November 17th, when this movie goes up on Netflix, with a touch of a button, this film about a man that no one has heard of is going to be in 169 countries in front of 300 million people instantly. And no other, there's a theatrical distribution, you could never get in front of that many people on the same day ever. So that's really powerful. And we're hoping that the film is going to spread out into the world and really do some of the magic that I feel like it has within its heart and soul to do.
So, Bruce, do you feel like this is your calling to work on films that speak to injustice and human condition, and or do you ever feel like, I just want to make a silly little film? Like, what can you see that for yourself?
I mean, certainly both. Like I'm not only interested in doing projects that have this social action, social justice opportunity to change the world, but it is certainly something that I didn't plan. And the fact that it has happened, I find it so humbling, and I feel so honored to ever be in a position to help make a film that might do that. So yes, that's certainly a great passion of mine, and something that I hope I never stop doing for as long as I'm making content.
So you're coming to Yale on Saturday. When's the last time you've been on this campus?
I come back to Yale a lot, and I think last spring was probably the last time. Oh no, yeah, last spring was the last time I was at Yale.
Because you're a class of 83. Yes. So you're coming to screen the film at under the Schwartzman Center coordination. Are you excited?
I'm extremely excited. There's a lot of great folks from Yale who are coming. I have friends of mine coming. The members of the administration are coming. We did a special outreach to Black student groups, to queer student groups, to queer Black student groups, to make sure that they knew about the film and had a chance to come watch. So I cannot wait for Saturday night. And for those of you listening, if you want to come, hopefully there are still tickets available, and we'd love to have you come out and see the movie. And I'll be there to introduce the film and to do a Q&A afterwards.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. So I look forward to meeting you. I thank you for your time.
I can't wait to meet you.
I can't wait to meet you. This film is very beautiful. I enjoyed it. I watched it last night. And it had my full attention. And when it was over, I was like, man, I wanted to go a little bit more. I wanted a little bit more because I just thought Coleman Domingo was just luscious in this. And so
I agree.
So when you make this film, and maybe you can't say this, but does it make the Oscar rounds? Does someone have to put this in for that, or do you wish for that or hope for that?
We are making the Oscar rounds. Awards is one of the ways that you get your message out. It's one of the ways that you get your film noticed. And, voters in all these different categories, the Oscars and the Writers Guild, SAG, all of these awards, that's one of the things they're looking for. Is they love films that are entertainment, but they also love films that have this added aspect of having something to say and maybe changing the world in a positive way. It's one of the amazing things, and it's what I'm very proud to be a part of the entertainment industry is, films and television shows are one of the ways that the message of change gets spread around the world. You can sometimes get your message across in an entertaining way on an important issue in a film with a movie star faster and more than any politician could ever do it in speeches for their whole lives. So, that's a really important plus of what film and television can do. And awards voters love that and respect that. So yes, we're definitely out on the trail, but that's not why you make a film, but it is a beautiful, fun part of the process if you're lucky enough to be in the mix for things.
Oh, I love it. And, let me tell you something. Let me put in my bid right now. If your husband can't go with you to the Oscars, I'm available and I have a ball gown.
Okay, well, actually, I think my 12-year-old daughter has first dibs, then my husband, but he's not you might actually slide it ahead of him because sometimes he's happy to miss those events. So I'll keep you posted.
Well, it was my pleasure to talk to you, Bruce Cohen. Thank you for making so much time available to talk about this beautiful, beautiful film.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for watching and enjoying this beautiful film. And I can't wait to meet you Saturday night.
Yes, I'll see you Saturday night in the space. So
Perfect.
have a good day.
Excellent.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Go have some coffee, some breakfast, and enjoy Washington.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right. Harry, I'm out. So I won't be on tomorrow because I'm going to go and participate at Gateway at the new center that's opening tomorrow. And it's an all-day affair, Harry. So I won't be here tomorrow. I will be at Gateway at the Melton McAvey Center for Equity and Justice for the day at Gateway Community College. So I won't be here on Friday. So I'll recap you on the weekend, about the weekend on Monday. And I will definitely go and see this film one more time. Thank you, Schwartzman Center. And thank you, Natalie and Emily for coordinating this effort. This was so much fun, and I enjoyed Bruce Cohen a whole lot. So thank y'all. I'll see y'all on Monday. Anyway, stay tuned. Harry probably will do Love, Harry, Love Conspiracy tomorrow. Oh, my Lord. I'll see y'all next week.